friends, whoever may come to watch this live cast later, for anyone who may be here watching it now, and to anybody who takes the time to listen to what I have to say and has any interest whatsoever in the things that I talk about. Because, said before, you can't say, I'm not an arrogant person, but I'm truly not an arrogant person. I have many insecurities, many things I'm unsure about in life, and I'm just trying to wrestle through the meaning of life like so many other people. I thought that 5 o'clock p.m. on a Monday was a strange time to do a video. It's MLK Day. I was going to work today anyway, but my boss texted me this morning and said that he felt like crap, and so we're taking the day off. So for me, it's been a stay-at-home, get stuff done day, and doing a little bit of listening in the background to different topics. And I always come up with something that I just have to share, and I thought a podcast would be a great way to do that. So I'm doing this live. I'm also doing the podcast version, which will be on the 15-minute Free Thinking podcast. So, where do I start? You know, the topic at hand is you don't know shit. And I suppose that I should kind of define where I'm coming from by posting that title, in the sense that there is an extreme lack of critical thinking in the world right now. By even bringing up that topic, it puts me in kind of a group of people that some folks may think of as, pious, or assume that I'm better than other people, or that I have better information or better research. And that's absolutely not the case. It's just that I feel like a lot of people just don't do any research whatsoever, that they don't put any effort into what they want to think, what they want to believe. They just hear it out of the mouth of somebody else and they repeat it. So how do we know we really know what we think we know? And it's something I've been pondering for a long time, but I was trying to think of a good metaphor, and the best one I could consider was to show your work. The whole time growing up, I was taught in school, show your work. And I never understood why that was important. The way I saw it is, if I had the answer, what did it matter where I got it? And the partial reason is because there's a slight chance that a person may have the answer to a math problem by wild guess, or by cheating, or by, say, a method that only works in that case but won't work elsewhere. And this is why the proper procedure is important in mathematics, in English skills, in all these things as we're growing up. Do the work, show your work, right? And even though it may seem ridiculous, at some point in your life you understand why. If you run a business, you need to know, people need to know not just how to do their job, but understand the jobs that they're looking out for. How many times do we have a manager that has absolutely no clue how a company runs? And it's just so common, it's ridiculous. Somebody who moves into a powerful position in a company that's doing okay, or maybe even struggling, and then all of a sudden just ruins that company because they assume that they know what's best in every case. I think we can point to many different situations like this over the past, say, decade, all the way down to Twitter recently. The thing about showing your work is, no matter what you dive into, you should know what you think you know before you start. And that's a lot more difficult than just saying, well, I know something. You have to bounce ideas off of other people, and this is where there's an impasse with a lot of folks. They don't want to share their work with other people. They don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be wrong. Now, nobody likes to be wrong. But there's an important, humility in knowing that if you made a mistake, you can better your life and better your situation by listening to other people. So showing our work shows that we deserve to know what we know. So this brings me to my first point, which would be, for example, what pops into my mind is conspiracy theories, right? I'm somebody who has delved into them all, and I've always been fascinated. And I may come across to some people who don't know me well as being anti-conspiracy theory and the kind of person who might be a quote sheeple and doesn't understand the deeper implications of what's going on behind the scenes. It's the exact opposite. It's that I have studied these things so deeply that I don't think I know what's going on. I've realized and gotten past that curve, the Dunning-Kruger effect, of thinking that I know what's going on, realizing it's much more complicated, and then kind of easing back on my thoughts and beliefs. Because ultimately the idea is not to be the one who others think is right, or to convince yourself that you're right, but to truly be right. All people. I like to be right, but it's not for the sake of being better than anyone else. There's a huge difference between somebody who just wants to always have one up on people and somebody who just says, let's get to the bottom of the real truth. Why can't we talk about the truth? And people will say, well, people don't understand the truth of what's going on. You could take COVID, for example. What happened in the last couple of years? A lot of people took wild guesses at the beginning that it's this or it's that. Some people were right, some people were wrong. The ones that are right often want vindication, or they say, aha, I told you so. I've seen this on so many different videos. People like, we told you this was coming. Meanwhile, ignoring the 10 other things they said were going to happen that never happened, right? And that's where I call the Alex Jones syndrome, where, if you're standing there screaming on the corner, you're going to get something right eventually. But it's the bigger point of guessing or versus knowing, or hearing something from someone else versus actually taking the time to study a topic and learn about it yourself. And I feel like we're at a time right now where there's so much information that people feel like they don't have, quote, the time to do the research on a topic. And I've heard this actually straight from people's mouths. They say, oh, I'm too busy. There's too much going on in life. It's like, come on. We all have extra time. There's very few people out there who aren't scrolling through their phones at one time or another, and you could actually be looking at important things. Doesn't mean you should, because to each person, it's their own. But a lot of people who do nothing but scroll through social media and media in general and just claim to be educated on topics and informed. I've learned so many things that I didn't know. I've made so many mistakes and errors in understanding, and I just roll with it and say, well, I want to know what's real, not what I think is real. If we want to compare building truth or knowing and knowledge, wisdom, which comes through knowledge, accrued knowledge is processed by the brain, fermented into wisdom. Wisdom comes from a lifetime of experiences, but it doesn't have to be an age-related thing. It comes with assimilating the things you learn. If you push things away, then you never learn. Put it this way. People will compare, building your mind and your body to a temple. If you're going to have a temple, you need a strong foundation. That strong foundation is very important. And so, basically, you may know something, but when somebody asks how you know it, it gets torn apart. And this gets into debates about, I just know it because it's true. I know it because I read it in a book. This is how we get religion. People aren't interested in studying the religion itself. They just want to know what others tell them and translate for them. This isn't everyone, of course. Each person's unique. But what we really want, all of us, I think, is less ambivalence, which is being unsure what to believe. The more we can hone down beliefs and not have to be ambivalent about them, then the happier generally we will be as people. At least that's what we think. So, why is critical thinking dying? Even though we have more information at our fingertips than ever before. Or was the information that people had in the past really we just thought we were more informed? Now, I won't deny the average kid today knows a hell of a lot more than kids did when I was young. And when I was younger, I remember the kids knew a hell of a lot more than my parents did. And it goes on back through time. Every new generation is interested in all the new things around them, and those things get shared with the culture, and kids are the ones who create memes, who create, new fads and designs and trends. And some of them are great, some of them are horrendous, but ultimately they are. Oops, I gotta turn my phone down real quick here. I didn't realize it was on vibrate. My bad. It's my son, he's at the park. Now, I guess I didn't turn it down all the way. There we go. Let me try this again. I need to continue my discussion. There we go. All the way down, all the way down. There we go. Nice. Cool. So, back in action. Thanks everybody for coming out and listening to what I have to say, for what it's worth. I'm going to read through. I saw a few comments in there, and I thought I would just, oh boy, I look like a dog with my ears or something. Say hello to everybody. Hello, Eric. It's good to see you. No, it just began. If you're asking, I just started this podcast. So, Orange, it's good to meet you. He says, always great to hear your live casts. I don't recognize your name really, so I'm glad that you enjoy them. Some subscribers don't comment, some do. Hello, Flower Tower. Greetings from Australia, she says. Bunny, thumbs up. Dirty the Grower, good to see you. Much love to you too. They'd rather sit and listen to sci-fi or Disney. Okay, so the last comment is Dirty the Grower says, Disney is a huge reason why single mothers are so big in the States. Valuetainment just did a big video on fatherless kids. Oh boy, that's a whole topic all in itself, isn't it? But, I'd love to talk about all that shit. I want to get deep on this one because I'm not high. I'm coherent. I've been doing shit. I feel like, so many topics just don't get talked about. So like I was saying with critical thinking, it's falling by the wayside. People don't seem to want to think deeply. This has only really hit home with me during the last 3 years of COVID. I realized that even faced with new information, people don't want to change their minds. I caught myself getting wrapped up in bullshit. Of course, I wanted to believe that something was true or wasn't true, and it was or it wasn't. And, you've got to be like, okay, I need to acknowledge what's really going on here. Being honest with yourself first and foremost. But what I realized is that when people are members of a group, like a political group, left or right, for example, they're willing to fall in line with whatever others who are in their same, quote, group believe. This is very common in the conspiracy theory realm, for example. And this isn't a left or right thing. Conspiracy theories, there's a whole bunch on the right about the left and a whole bunch on the left about the right. There's the whole, naturopathy and different movements like holistic medicine and what you might call naturopathic medicine is basically like, those pills you get at the store, which have like 1/1,000,000th, 1 part per 10 million or something, and it's considered medicine. It's crazy what people believe. The placebo effect is real and it's huge, but it also affects us in many different other ways that we don't even understand. We don't even have definitions for some of the ways that we're manipulated by groups and by ideas and by thinking that things are true or real. We've only begun to scratch the surface of the human mind and how fucking ridiculous we are. And it's just funny to me when I talk to people who just kind of forget that we're really just hairless apes with suits on. We're not that far from complete primitive. I have a hard time really getting into that topic because most people I talk to really want to believe that humans are something special and above and beyond animals, beyond the earth. Like we are the kings somehow. And I know religion teaches that, namely Christianity, but no, I don't buy it. I consider us tentacles of the universe, but there are some people out there who are worse than dogs. And I have a hard time, that right there, the fact that there are some people that are so horrendous and horrible that I think they'd be better off replaced by lions. It's the real world. It's the fact that there are some crappy people, but people put their blinders on and they don't use any critical thinking that goes outside of their own surroundings, their own environment, their local community. So I guess what I'm saying in that, when I was in the conspiracy thing there, is don't stop giving your attention away to, quote, truthers. It was a big thing a few years back. Everybody wanted to tell you, quote, the truth. And it's just so ridiculous that people, I mean, look, I'm all for the truth. I have so many conspiracy oriented books and a whole discussion on the Federal Reserve and Freemasonry. I mean, my grandfather was a master mason. I've always been fascinated with these things. But it goes nowhere. You find out it doesn't matter what secret societies are doing. It doesn't matter what cabals are planning or what goes on behind closed doors in places you'll never be. What really matters is your interactions with your immediate environment and the people around you and the way that we, share our thoughts and ideas. And this is getting lost because of the internet. Doing it in person, if you're out there talking with people, you find it's not like you see online, but a lot of people get drugged from the online behavior and they bring that out into the world. It's a completely different thing. And people have become so convinced that they are marginalized, their group, whatever it might be. Now this is so many different types of people. You've got the incel, and then you've got the BLM guy, and then you've got the gay community, whatever it might be. All many people have been harassed and berated for what they believe and what they think. But we've taken it to such an extreme that we go on the offensive. We don't just say, oh, I've been attacked by a person who believes this or doesn't believe what I believe, but rather, I'm going to attack this person because of what they believe, because they might attack me, or because I've been attacked by someone like that. We've been acting like fucking children online for the last few years. And I know that it was bad in the past, but at least you could pick out the douchebags. Today, it's like everybody thinks they're so smart, so witty. And I feel like it's kind of a shift. We're going through a shift right now. And we're learning to stop giving away our power to other people. And especially when it comes to the issue of knowledge, this comes down to need to know versus want to know. And what I've found is that people want to know way too much shit. There's very little that we need to know. And if you dissect the news, if you, for example, stop watching it for a month, then go back and read every single headline and ask yourself which of these stories that I missed affected my life negatively in some way. Maybe you didn't know. People are surprised sometimes and they're like, have you heard about this? I'm like, no. They're like, what? Like, you don't know about this trend going on right now? But there are some that I do, and I can't look away. Especially when it is something big that is very socially, divisive, like the whole Twitter thing with Elon or Kanye acting like a complete fool, because I'm fascinated with human nature and what triggers people to do really dumb things when they have positions of influence and power. And it's just fascinating. But I think that one of the examples we can take away from people like that is that they cave to peer pressure. They act independent. These people famous people who really need the attention and crave it, the people who are always tweeting, and it's not the ones who want to post ideas or thoughts that other people had. It's the ones who want to tell you about their life. It's a big difference. There are a lot of people who post a lot online, but they do so to share many different reasons. Some people just want to tell you everything about what's going on with them. They want to complain, and they get really bothered if people don't like their stuff enough. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how narcissistic so many people are, and it's just kind of a side effect of the society we're living in right now. But don't cater to peer-to-peer bullshit. Be your own man or woman. Don't let other people influence you to fall in line with some stupid shit. It was, I've always been an independent person, but, I remember years ago, probably a couple decades ago, telling myself, I'm never going to cave to a bad joke, some racist or judgmental or hateful joke that really doesn't make sense. I mean, there's humor in everything to an extent, but if somebody tells a bad joke that's, at the cost of someone else, or someone says something that's really hateful, I don't just laugh along uncomfortably like a lot of people do. And I see it all the time. People say something stupid in a group of people, and You know, everybody laughs along, even though you can tell that they're not really with it. They don't want to make waves. Make waves. Make waves in person. Do it. Always speak your mind when you're out in public. I know this is counter to what a lot of other people would believe. They'd say, mind your own business, do your own thing. It's not your problem. It is your problem. You live in this society. You know, you've got to put up with these douchebags. So speak up. And therefore, your education will be increased by knowing more about these people. So our attention is very limited. And I've been thinking about this a lot. It's an interesting topic, actually. I wanted to just flip through see if anyone else has joined and say hello. Hey, Chris says, give Joff a thumbs up. Yeah, thank you, my friend. Yeah, give a thumbs up. People always forget to do that, and that's okay. If you don't like it, maybe you're here to hate me. I don't know. Some people probably are. Freestyler, good to see you. And Alone, good to see you. Shadow work teaches us what we dislike in others, an aspect of yourself. Yep, exactly. Except for I dislike greed in billionaires, but I don't have any money. So I guess there are some exceptions. Yeah, but I know exactly what you mean. Good to see you, Ichigo Ichi. Keep on trucking. Laurelin, and they call me Ken. Keep on thinking in the new world. Nice. It's good to see you all. It really is. I appreciate y'all. And I want to say as the beginning, this is really an open forum. And one thing I love about my live casts is I start them spontaneously. You may or may not catch it, but it just has to be the right frame of mind. I'm not a, quote, YouTuber. I'm not a content creator. I'm a guy who feels like talking sometimes, and I don't want to bore other people, so I make videos because I know you all are interested sometimes. But I do love sharing some of these topics, and I do take a lot of notes. And I was thinking today about how my patience is extremely limited. I went to the store. It's literally a quarter mile away. I mean, maybe a half. It's, 8-10 blocks or something. But I drive because it's out on a 6-lane, road, and then left down the other busy road. And I got to carry groceries. So I drove down there, found a spot to park, went in the store. Wasn't too busy. Got my stuff, and I left. And then I got stuck behind this old guy who turned a little too slow at the green light. I still made it. Then he turned a little too slow at the next light. I still made it. The thing is, this guy, I was just like, oh my God, fucking found myself getting irritated. And I said, cool it. And this is an ongoing problem for me. I'm not aggressive. I consider myself a good driver, don't we all? But I honestly sometimes, I really have very little patience with people. Can't stand it when people are going slow. And I like to get where I'm going and not mess around. I don't like it when people dink. And I know that everybody has their own issues. An old guy's an old guy. But yeah, it's frustrating. And I find myself like, okay, this is a good time to learn patience. And I've done a lot of thinking about it because I realized I am patient with people. I am extremely patient with people. When I get really pissed off, I can hold back so much from flipping out on people. But when it comes to out in traffic people, or waiting in line, or people I don't know, completely different story. It's only patience with people I know and that I love. And I thought about this. I'm like, maybe it's one of those things that you only have a limited amount of, right? Because if you've watched anything about motivation, and I'm sure everyone out there has, if you watch a video about motivation, dopamine, whatever they might talk about, there's always one recurring theme, that there's a limit on how much motivation you have each day. And I've found that to be absolutely true. You might be able to bust out and clean a bunch of drawers, or maybe go out and go on a jog, whatever it might be. But motivation for most people, there's a limit and there's a cutoff to where you're like, I don't want to do anything anymore. Even if you still have energy. It's very akin to the way when we eat food, we can get totally sick of eating one food, can't have another bite, but you could eat a different food. Motivation comes in packets, and it has to be recharged through sleep. That's the way I see it. Now, interest in projects, I've found have been the exact same way. You can paint for a few hours, draw for a few hours, but you're eventually going to get bored of that one thing. People want to move on to something else. attention and focus on any one thing that we're doing has extreme limits. But then I thought maybe we also have limits on patience, limits on tolerance, limits on how much we're going to put up with other people's stupid fucking bullshit and their whiny ass attitudes. I mean, think about it. I've been through a lot of shit in my life, a lot of points and a lot of ways of thinking where I was at a point in my life where I tried to take the peaceful path. You know, I was meditating. I had this, right where I'm sitting actually, there was this huge circle and I had all these candles, and then I tried some Kundalini yoga, and I've tried to read and learn. Taught myself immense benefits, things about dealing with stress, anxiety, depression. I wake up and I pretty much feel pretty moderate throughout the day. I don't find myself having extreme mood swings. I don't, feel sad. I get up and I get out of bed and I do my shit. That's all I can ask for. That's all I really want out of life, is to be able to function and feel good when I feel good and deal with badness when it comes. But I don't feel bad very often. But for me, the number one lesson was alchemy. That's the hundreds of hours of lectures I've listened to. It was always the ones about mental alchemy. And for anyone who doesn't know, alchemy, of course, was turning lead or other base metals into gold. But really, it was always a metaphor for bettering yourself. And I've never read this connection, but what I came to the conclusion of is that alchemy is started by practicing trying to convert materials into other materials. But the betterment part comes on its own, and at some point you realize it was never about the gold, because life's not about the money. And you hit this kind of epiphany where, okay, I need a certain amount to survive, but beyond that, I really just want to be happy. And then you start analyzing happy. What does it mean to be happy? Well, is that something that's an ongoing process? Which it's not. Happiness is a state that is defined by our lows. Happiness is something that is a counterbalance to the bad times. And if you've never experienced negativity, you will create it out of your happiness. This is the exact reason, this whole philosophy, it's like Ouroboros. It's a never-ending circular argument that heaven, the idea of heaven, an eternal space where you're always happy, because I know that happiness is only in contrast to that sadness. So the alchemy has taught me that anytime something bad happens to me, or quote bad, there's always a silver lining. There's always something to learn from it, something I'm going to benefit from, and maybe those around me will benefit from. If you can't find that, you're not looking hard enough. It doesn't matter what it is. So, most people, this is going to be the next topic. I'm going to talk about people who take shit out on society and pretend that they're experts on everything because they have such a shitty life at home and they can't control anything. And the line that came to mind was from Pink Floyd, The Wall. And the song is called Happiest Days of Our Lives. Pink Floyd, 1979, The Wall. And the line goes, when they got home at night, their fat and psychopathic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. So they were talking about teachers within the wall. We don't need no education, right? Well, those teachers that were abusive to the kids, the idea was that they go home at night and get their asses kicked by their wives. The underlying theme there is that people who have a shitty home life, who have others who have abused them, or aren't in control of other parts of their life, will often take that out on others, to the extent where they become cult leaders. They want you to believe everything they think. It's very hard to distinguish a cult from some of the modern day YouTubers, or, look at the Andrew Tate people. Look at people who are big fans of, some of these tech billionaires. Like, look at the Elon Musk fans, the way they defend him. I mean, here's a guy who bought Twitter for 3 times the actual value because of a spat, because he wanted to be cool. And meanwhile, he tanked Tesla stock 70% in the last year. Think about this. Tesla, You know, their company is tanking because their main guy isn't doing anything because he's too busy fucking around on Twitter. It's crazy to think that people who we revere can go so far off the rails and act like such idiots, but the huge masses of people will still follow them. Now, this fascinates me to no end because this comes down to the non critical thinking I was talking about earlier. People don't ask, what are the real intentions, I think, of people? And that right there is where we lose each other. No intention. Doesn't matter. This person wants to save the world. He wants to take us all to Mars, right? Or Trump wants to save the country, whoever it might be. Or Kanye's a genius, he's creating amazing music and art. Okay. I fascinated. I watched his interview on Alex Jones where he wore the hood and he praised Hitler. It was just crazy. I don't know what to think about any of that. Except for a poor guy, I actually feel sorry for him at this point. Like, I feel sorry for all the people that I'm talking about, even the people that I'm making fun of, that I'm saying have gone off the rails, even Elon Musk. The guy just wants to be liked. And so does Trump, so does Kanye. The problem lies is when people want to be liked by everyone. And you know what? I hate to break it to you, but that should be one of the first life lessons you learn is you will never be liked by everybody. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow. I'm even for me, I'm pretty rational and I'm a pretty kind person. I always try to be reasonable, but some people don't like me. And I get it. I understand why. I'm overbearing. I can be very egocentric. I'm not egotistical and I'm not arrogant, I promise, but I stand by what I say and I'm very, vocal about it. I can be a little bit intense and a little bit overbearing. And maybe when I'm partying too hard, I can be a jerk sometimes if I drink too much or something, especially if I'm taking nitrous hits for some reason. But anyway, I've found that there are some people who have, for example, followed my channel for years just to find the one bad thing to say once in a while. They'll, pipe up once a year or something to say something like, "Oh, you're just still a dick," or "I told you so," or, you know, uh, I've had death threats. I've had people threaten my family. It's weird. Um, just exposing yourself and sharing things online, you put yourself in a weird position. I need to take a bottle and vape break, but if I do it on camera, then, you know, it'll be censured. So I'm going to step just off camera, continue to chat with you all. But I also have the podcast going and I need the microphone. That's okay. The microphone will just have to turn up its volume. Right, microphone? So, to continue, I'm not quite sure how I feel these days. I want to tell you that I use YouTube as kind of my ground level. I mean, besides my life, my family, my home, these things. Um, when it comes to my actual motivation in life, YouTube is kind of my gauge. I use work as well, but I've really only been back to working for another person for less than a year now. Like, I don't know, 8 months, maybe 9. For those who don't know, I went out seeking a job on Craigslist because I was selling kratom for quite a while, and I wanted something where I could challenge myself and get back in shape. And I said I want a job building tiny homes. And I found one guy that was doing restorations of cars and trucks and like turning them into like exploration vehicles. I thought that'd be pretty cool. But I don't know if I ever heard back from him. And then I went to look a couple weeks later, and the second job on Craigslist was tiny house carpenter wanted. So I answered the ad, went to meet the guy and his lady friend. They're in there, I think, around 60 or so, and they were both really nice. Total, people I would see at a dead show. They listened to the same kind of music. I showed them the carpentry that I'd done and ended up working for them, and it's been a perfect match. So I use that as kind of a gauge to how motivated am I each day when I get up. And I think most people do. Like, how focused are you to do your job, to focus on what you need to do? Sometimes I just have no motivation. And over the last few years, I've found that I needed to work for somebody else. Otherwise, I would not get off my ass. I would package up my kratom for the day, and then I'd go outside and go on a walk, and I'd make a video. I'd come back and I'd make another video. I mean, think about all the time I've spent doing this. It's only natural that it would be something that would keep me somewhat grounded because of the fact that I'm still, making videos after 11 years. There's times when I say I'm done. I don't want to do YouTube ever again. This happened like a month ago. And then all of a sudden I'm back making videos. I've got like 6 videos that are unlisted right now. And a lot of the time I don't ever make them public. What I'll do is I'll share some of the more, strange ones just to my Patreon and then leave the other ones unlisted. So I do share a few to the Patreon that aren't on YouTube, but other than that, I pretty much post most of them, and there's 4,500 videos. I've talked about every topic. When I go back and watch a video of my own, it's just so cringe. Like, look at that dude. Who the fuck was I? What was I thinking? God, why was I talking about that? It's weird. It's a really weird thing. I don't know why I started or why I still do it, but when I don't feel like doing it, it reminds me that I've got to be doing something else. Like, when I haven't been doing videos for a few days, I'm like, what a waste of time. I don't ever want to set up cameras and freaking microphones to do podcasts. What the fuck am I doing this for? I don't get paid for it. I do get my patrons, and thank you all. I appreciate that. But in all full transparency, the total I make is about $126 a month, I think, from Patreon. And which, hey, it's something. But from YouTube itself, I have ad monetization enabled, and I went through all the shit, did it for a few videos, and just felt stupid. It's like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want people watching fucking ads. But at any rate, the reason why I kind of wanted to give up is, and just kind of go back and forth is, I don't know. I don't know why. It's just because of different mental states. It could be the moon. It could be the stars. It could be what I'm consuming, what I'm eating, what I'm not eating, whether I'm hydrated enough, whether the sun's out, I have enough vitamin D. There are so many factors that go into knowing why we feel the way we feel. And I think most of us are afraid to talk about some of it. Like, why do we feel sad? Or why do we feel anxious about certain things? And why can't we quit doing this drug, or consuming that, eating that, drinking that, whatever it might be? I know for me, it is hard. I don't talk about my addictions very often. I've got plenty, but way back in the day, I used to talk about psychedelics on my channel, and I talked about psychedelics quite a bit. And cannabis as well. In fact, right where I'm sitting, there was a huge pot garden, and I had a growing permit. That was before it was legal here, and I had a medical card. And I'd share all my growing techniques. I've bred my own seeds. I've got, seeds that were bred from my own genetics. Like, I'm like, this is, cool. I'm really into this. And then one day, totally lost interest in it. Just stopped growing pot. I know it was partially because it became pretty damn cheap. I mean, you can honestly go into the weed store here and buy an ounce of pretty decent weed for $60. It's not killer weed, but decent, and it's kind of hard to beat that even with a home grow, especially when you don't have a lot of space. But that's not the point. The point is that I found myself going through so many different stages, and the fact that I don't talk about weed has nothing to do with the fact that I don't grow it anymore. It's because I've grown up in the last 10 years and realized I feel really awkward. Even though YouTube did, make a lot of my content for adults only, and it's still out there, I just feel stupid talking about drugs. I honestly thought I would be a huge, staunch supporter of cannabis my whole life. I thought I would be a big supporter of psychedelics my whole life. And to be honest, I'm still a huge supporter of both of them. I just hear so many people, especially young people, were like the age I was when I was really, really into it, way before the internet though. Like back in the, early to mid 90s. And I was a huge supporter of cannabis. And I remember the way that adults would look at me like, you just don't get it. And I didn't. And now I do. I don't encourage psychedelic use or marijuana use or any use of drugs by anybody who's young. I would say there's nothing wrong with a little experimentation, don't get me wrong. But using these things regularly from anybody under 25, I think is a horrible idea because your brain is still developing, and you might find you never need these things. A lot of us have kind of compulsions to do different things because we developed it from when we were young and we consumed drugs, but some people actually developed it later in life through loss or fears or PTSD. So it's very complicated. The way the brain works is extremely complicated, and every day is like a litmus test for how well we can handle reality and make it through, you know. So anybody who's abusive, anybody who's hateful out there, the people that you meet that are real jerks, you can often draw it back to something that happened to them every time. And when you look at it that way, can you really say that people are evil? It's interesting. I don't know. I just don't know. I do know I got some new glasses and I'm pretty excited about them. They're just, readers, but they're the 1.0 readers, which is just what I need to read your messages on here. I wanted to go back and say hello to anyone else who has joined and answer any questions, because that's part of what this is all about. It's not just me talking. I'm actually able to read every single one of your fucking comments, and I appreciate them. The money is the lesson. Al Ohm. One moment, one time, as the Japanese Nietzsche called it, the eternal return. Eric says, I'm in debt. I don't know who I'm in debt to. We're all in debt. We're all in debt, my friend. Anybody else joined in here? Oh, Hot Retarded Chicks is here to say Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that someone's recognized I'm the second coming. Ha, ha. Daniel Riley, you just tuned in. Have I missed much? No, it's only been about 40 minutes, I guess. But, well, I guess you have missed quite a bit. But I didn't realize it'd been that long because time goes by really fast when you're doing videos. It's weird. Laurelyn says, yes, that's true. Motivation goes up and down for me. Absolutely. They call me, Ken says, I'm about his awareness of plants of life systems. Alum. Yes, we're made of the same parts. Flow state. That's part of it. That's definitely part of it. Getting into a flow state is super important. I'm going to have to flip through faster so I don't just look like I'm staring at you all. Chris says Elon Musk wants to implant chips with people's heads. Yeah, that's kind of a weird one. I'm not a big fan of that. Kapuxi 1000. Hello, Carpo. It's Kapuxi from Finland. Kapaxi. Good to see you, Kapaxi. Thanks for coming and thanks for listening to my ramble. Hello from Tanzania. Laurelyn, you're in Tanzania? Really? Wow. Nice. Kapuxi says he's been following you for 7 years. Nice. That's a long time. Damn. Yeah, I'm really trying to do more of these live casts, but it's hard to kind of motivate to do them. And, Monk Handle. Good to see you too, my friend. And Jesse Sargent. I'm trying to read through the comments as fast as I can, but I can't read every single one of them. Helen Keller. Okay. Daniel Wheeler says, I consumed mushrooms for the first time when I was 15 with my cousin. Amazing experience at our grandma's watching cartoons. Nice. I got to tell you, the first time I ever took psychedelics, it was acid. And let's just say from the early to the late 90s, there was so much acid around, and it was good stuff. And it was fucking really good stuff. And my friends and I took some doses, and we sat in my garage hole, we called it. It was like this converted garage that had two separated areas. And what was that? $50 from Eric. Dude, what? Man, that's amazing. Thank you so much, dude. That's fucking amazing. Thanks. I really appreciate that, bro. Um, I took acid with my friends. We took 3 hits of Smileys. It wasn't the first time, but it was the first big trip we had. We spent some time in my garage hole. We we sat there, and I remember the knots on the wall speaking to me. The little, because it was like a real wood uh, paneling underneath the siding, and there was really no insulation, come to think of it. So yeah, it was just pretty exposed. And I had all my tapes and shit out there. Yeah, we listened to tapes back then, and we had this shitty little voice like recorder. We could hit record on the little boom box, and it would record us in the room on a blank tape. And I remember listen. I still have this recording, and this is from like 1990, I think, or 91. And we're just tripping, and we're just like, there's this mosquito hawk that came down, and it started flying around the room, and it was so huge, not just because we thought it was huge, but it was seriously a big one. And we were just laughing about it and acting like it was going to attack us, and knowing it wasn't. But anyway, the next morning we went down and actually went on my roof for a bit, then went down to this train bridge we had in Lake Oswego, Oregon. It was a train trestle that went between Lake Oswego and Milwaukee, Oregon. So we went over the Willamette River, and we go out to the center, and there's a spot where you can climb down underneath the tracks and hang out on one of the concrete pillars. But that day we decided to actually climb up the arches on the trestle, which had ladders that were like welded to it, but they only went up to where the curve was enough to where you could just walk across those I-beams. And we did. I did. My buddy was like, fuck that. All I remember is climbing all the way up and inching all the way up to the top of this thing. It just makes my crotch cringe just thinking about it. And look down at my buddy, and he's way down there. He'd gone all the way down the bridge, down all the way down like back to the beginning, down this crazy dirt hill, all the way along the river. And he was like, he goes, "Hey, fried guy." And I heard the echo, and I looked down, and he's like waving, and I was cracking up. And it was just then that the sun started to come up over the horizon. And I just sat there. And as the sun came up, I stared at the sun the whole time with my dilated eyes just, and once it was totally up, because you can still look at it when it's rising, especially it was kind of hazy, so it was perfect. I was reborn. I felt like I was a completely reborn person. It was like the most amazing experience. And that was when I realized psychedelics are so much more than just a trip or a party tool. These things are serious medicine. And I had a channel dedicated just to psychedelics until YouTube fucked it all up. I had to change it, and I don't even use it anymore. It's like Carpo now, or Thoughts, or one of those channels. But man, psychedelics have helped me immensely, and I'm very respectful and cautious about how often I take them. But speaking of the title of the video and not knowing shit, let me just say that there are some things, humans can tell you a plethora of bullshit that you may or may not believe. Nature, when it speaks, it fucking means what it says. It doesn't fuck around. Pardon the fucks, but it's fucking serious. Nature, you go out in there and the trees say the same thing every time, right? The plants say the same thing every time. There are no trends in nature. Maybe just trends of growth in certain areas, but that's acceptable because it's not threatening. And it's like getting your data from nature is probably far more useful than dealing with human bullshit. You know, in other words, if we want to learn something, going out into the woods is probably far more educational than watching any YouTube video about the woods. So, you know, we've kind of lost that in a way, I guess. It's sad. It really is sad. I mean, I want to think that people give a shit about the planet. I want to think that people give a shit about each other. I really do. But sometimes they don't. Where are we at here? Thanks again, Eric. That was freaking awesome. Book club time, says Al. Dude, hey, that would be great. Yeah. And I want to say again, man, if you, all I ask, I don't expect donations, man. But if you hit the thumbs up, that just helps the video. For some reason, people say that. Maybe that's just my perspective. But I know it does. It helps me out. Maybe it just helps my ego. I don't know. But you were talking about books. Let me show you a book that a subscriber sent to me. Now, here's another story when we're talking about psychedelics and chance and coincidence and all these things. Several years ago, one of my subscribers said, by the way, I just bought you a book. I'm having it shipped to your house. I'm like, what? Because it's one that I think that I don't know if I'd mentioned it before or not, but it's this book right here, Encyclopedia of Psychoactive Plants. And it's big. I mean, look at this fucking thing. I've got bookmarks all over this thing, and it's got everything. Yeah, it has kratom in it. It has all these different psychoactive plants in it. It's a wonderful book. And here's the weird thing. I had just gone online and ordered that book, closed out my order, and then I went back to my YouTube and I read the comment that somebody had just ordered it to my house. It was literally within the same 5 minutes. It was the weirdest thing. And it wasn't like I'd just been talking about it. It was just a strange thing. I was able to cancel my order online, obviously, fortunately. But I ended up with this great book. But I have this whole series up here, and it's called Pharmacognosis, Pharmacopoeia, and Pharmacodynamics. And they're Latin, but basically dynamic plants. The Pharmacopoeia would be like, each book basically deals with different substances, drugs, everything from ayahuasca to mushrooms, mostly psychoactive plants, almost all psychoactive plants, tobacco, everything you can imagine. And it's told in like a story format. But it's not, each one has what they call the ally, and it's a page where there's like a poem, and it describes the vibes of that energy of that plant. Such as anyone who's ever done salvia knows that it's a female presence. I've never heard a single person say, oh yeah, salvia, a male presence was there. No, it's fucking female. There's, no way around it. There's, and yes, I do believe in male and female energies. I do believe that male and female are real things and exist within nature for their own purpose. But some drugs don't follow that protocol, such as like mushrooms. They are universally, they don't give a damn. And it may sound weird to people to say that drugs have a spirit or an essence or an energy about them. I guess not weird, but weird coming from me, maybe. I consider myself a rational person, but I also, what I've experienced in these states is so much more real than real. More real than much of the real life I've had. Not something I would want to live in. Not a reality I would want to live in. And that's the thing. I think psychedelics can be more real than reality. But they also don't let them pull you into wanting to be in that state. It would be horrible. Being in that all-knowing, all-thinking state would just be horrendous in daily life. You couldn't get anything done. And that's why I believe psychedelics are basically a glimpse into the ether. The ethereal, if you will. It's pretty interesting stuff. It really is. I don't know what to make of it all. I have to go grab something real quick, and I will be right back. Chat amongst yourselves. Toodaloo. It's hard to know what's true. It's hard to know what's real. It's hard to know what matters. We're constantly inundated with other people's idea of what's important. Everything from family unit issues to work issues to people talking about the good old days and how things used to be, which is something I can totally relate to, but I don't buy into, because reminiscing about the good old days is one thing, but griping about the fact that things have changed, it never goes over well with any generation. Reality is what it is. We can't change the evolution of people as far as what's already happened and the cultural bullshit that's already come out. But I think what we can do is, at least as individuals, and this is something we can start anytime, right now, any day, start to pick through what we think is important and what we think is bullshit, and especially what we think even matters. This is why I don't watch the news. Like I said, I read the headlines sometimes, I can't help it, but I don't buy into the news cycle. I'm not interested in, what's going on overseas. And yes, at the beginning of what happened in Ukraine, I started watching because I got sucked in. In the beginning of Iraq, the same thing. Anytime there's a new war, anytime there's a new scare, a new drug, whatever it might be, a new fear, I find myself reading about it, thinking about it, and saying, why? Why did I get pulled into that? Let me just say, before COVID, I'm glad that I was informed. Not because I was afraid of it itself, but rather I was afraid of the idiocy and how people would react to it. And I think the reason why I watch the news closely is I'm watching for a disaster. Because if something big happens, people are going to act like complete idiots. I would like to believe that people would help one another, help their neighbors. And I think in a lot of places that would be true. But if you live in somewhere like downtown New York and the power went out for an extended period of time, we already know what happens. Look, society already sits on a precipice. We're on the fulcrum right now, if you want to call it that. I feel like we've hit the peak of our civilization. And it's almost like an icy teeter-totter on a fulcrum. We were able to slowly climb our way up it, but once you get past a certain point and it tips down, you just slide down. You can't catch yourself. No pickaxe, nothing. We're fucked. And I don't mean we're guaranteed to be screwed as individuals. I mean that as a society, it's inevitable that eventually it will crumble. Something will happen big enough to, And look, if this is too doomy, I know a lot of people actually get really bothered. I have friends who get bothered when I talk about this kind of stuff. And I didn't realize it really bothered people that much. I think it's important that we talk about the potential for example, a major CME or solar flare to take out the grid. I mean, in 2012, people don't realize this. There was so much bullshit in 2012 about the end of the world and the Mayan calendar. So it was an interesting coincidence that in that same year, sometime during this late summer, I think, there was a coronal mass ejection off of the sun that was monstrous. I guess apparently, from what I read, it was 10 times stronger than anything we've ever measured on Earth. And it was on the backside of the sun. So it pushed away from us. The thing is, when there's a solar flare or a CME, whether it's from a sunspot group or whatever it may be, and yes, it's a pretty cool thing. So when it really puts one out, in 1859, the Carrington event is what they called it. It lit telegraph stations on fire. They were able to send telegraphs without even using batteries because the ground currents were so strong. It was the biggest solar event they'd ever recorded, but there were auroras almost down to the equator, I think. But they didn't have any electricity yet. They didn't have phone lines yet. It was just telegraphs. So it was repaired. We moved on. If this same thing happened today, it would be curtains. I mean, people would not be able to recover from this quickly. And I know folks don't really understand the depth of how important this is to know that the U.S. has several of these large capacitor, transformers, and some of them in the huge metropolitan areas. Some of the large ones serve monstrous areas, and if they go out, it takes up to 7 years to build a new one, and there's no replacements. I mean, there are people around the world. Think about it this way. There are countries around the world right now that are building and need access to these things. The U.S. doesn't spend money on extra shit to just to hang on to just in case. The U.S. government does not care whether or not they can respond to a major crisis or disaster. And they definitely don't prepare for the inevitable, like a major blackout. So, from what I read, we could reinforce our entire grid, which would mean basically they'd have junctions within the long transmission lines across the U.S., areas where they could hit a switch and basically make a break in the lines, which would decrease the amount of energy that built up in the lines, causing less destruction to the lines themselves and the transformers. They don't want to spend the money to do it because they're too busy buying bombs to send out to Japan so they can pretend like they're at war with China, which is another thing going on right now. If you're not aware, this just started, and it's, another bullshit. We say that Japan needs our help so they can protect themselves because they're scared of Russia. So now we're doing these joint task forces with Japan and sending a bunch of weapons there. And, I don't mean to spoil the parade here, but already talking about solar flares, imagine what it would do to the GPS and the military systems and everything else. I mean, we're living in a very precarious time. A time when we're fucked if something big happens. We're so interconnected right now. And so I'm not going to talk about the negatives of it. I can if you want, and just ask me and I'll get into the details. I've been fascinated with this shit for years. I came to the conclusion a long time ago what we need to do is have seeds, water, food storage, just basic food for a few months, but seeds are important. Buy heirloom seeds for all your favorite fruits, vegetables. I mean, this is something that is so easy to get and so fucking cheap right now that the idea of not having seeds stored away is just dumb. I mean, I have these vacuum sealed cans I bought of emergency seeds, 35,000 seeds, I think, 2 of them. And I opened one last year because I wanted to see if they were still good. Everything sprouted. And I'd had them for 15 years. And those aren't the only ones. I've got a bunch of other ones too. And yeah, you can't prepare for everything. But, being smart enough to know that maybe it won't be a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. Maybe it could be an attack on the grid through EMPs. And, it's funny that my parents grew up under the threat of nuclear war. People were digging bomb shelters in their backyard. People were doing drills at school for nuke attacks. Yet today, I think we're at less than a minute and a half to midnight or something. We're closer than we've ever been. We should be more aware of that fear as well. But all it takes is one crazy fucker. It's crazy how many times that we could have actually, been in for some shit, let's say. But I'm not really afraid of that. And I'm not afraid of a nuclear war. I'm not afraid of a solar flare or a grid, collapse. I've got some gas. I've got a generator. I know how to survive and make it work. And if I don't, then I don't. But I guess the big point here and the big takeaway is not to worry about shit that we can't control. You never know which direction it's going to come. I guess off the top of my head, an example would be the guy who spends 10 grand buying every gun and all the bullets he can, and then when shit really hits the fan, he forgot to buy food, right? Or the person who spends all his time preparing for nuclear fallout, so he builds a bunker underground, and in the end, it's a flood, right? I mean, or he spends all his time preparing for a flood and building a boat, and then it's a firestorm. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think that that's right there the key of what makes life pretty awesome. We don't know what's going to happen. We never have, and we never will. That's why I don't believe in psychics and why I'm not interested in knowing the future. Just let that shit unravel. See what happens. So I'm going to flip through the comments real quick if y'all don't mind. Just say hello. A badass book, proper book. Yep. And I'll share, if you all want sometime, I'll share all the books I have with y'all. I'm not that kind of guy who's like, these are the books I've read. You should read these books too, and you'll be informed. That's just, books are books. They're just like any other information. Some are full of shit and some aren't, but Laurelyn says, I've hesitated to use psychedelics because I haven't had a mentor or guide. I've hesitated to use them alone, haven't had the chance to be with others to try them. And that's a totally legitimate fear, legitimate interest to make sure you want to do it right and do it proper. That is totally noble, and I don't blame you. It can become hard for some people. Even if you don't have a mentor or guide, just having a friend to do it with can be very helpful. But I'll warn you, one of my experiences was with my friend. He took too much and he ended up going home and freaking out, and his mom took him to the hospital. It was just a nightmare. And I laid there all night freaking out, thinking the cops were coming to arrest me. And so, yeah, make sure you know somebody well and, and know what you're getting, especially. Spinning Wheels, good to see you, my friend. He says, are you watching TB12, the 45-year-old football wonder? I don't know what that even means. I'll be honest, I can't decipher the TB12 or whether football means American or soccer. I'll be honest, I don't watch any sports. Vic Dick says, or Vic Dish, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, says, do you have any recommendations for the politicians in Washington? Maybe they would actually accomplish something. I don't do that stuff. I'm not against it either. Yeah, as far as them, they should take mushrooms too. Absolutely. Spinning Wheels. Monday Night Football with Joe Buck happening right now. You tuning in, brother? No, I hate to break your heart. I don't do football. I don't like it. I've never enjoyed it. I've never enjoyed watching it or playing it. I think it's kind of a brutal sport. Fucks up people's heads. So I just can't get into it. But I do like basketball, but only sometimes. KC says hello. Hello, KC. Laurelyn says, yeah, got tired of life in California and moved to Tanzania. That's pretty cool, man. I'm curious to know what it would be like out there. Dude, much love, Eric. Thank you, too. Switch Jim, good to see you, too. Switch Jim says, I'm curious about the real, like you, and the stuff you said about psychedelics is true. Like Tim Leary, it was to learn. Then you have the experience to do again, like a learned skill. Yes, it is kind of like that, but think of it more like reading a book. And here's the thing, you read a book a year later, and you get new insight into it. I think the book's a harder example because I actually need a trip maybe once a year or every couple of years to kind of regain my composure. But I don't have to really trip. I can take Molly, or MDMA rather, sorry, like I did on New Year's Eve, a moderate dose, like 0.50 grams, or sorry, 0.05 grams. Basically a 20th of a gram, a small dose for a guy my size. And that's more than enough for me to just feel empathy and feel good, have connections with people. And I've learned to really moderate. Now, there are people who take 0.5. So I've heard people, those are usually what I call the braggers. So if you're ever interested in psychedelics, the important thing to remember is that there are people who use them as tools and people who use them to party. And the people who use them to party are what I call the braggers, and they will always tell you how much they took. When it comes to taking any drug, here's my rule of thumb when talking to people, I guess. How do I define this? If they want to brag about how much they took, I'm suspicious. If they want to brag about how little they took, then I'm on board. And what I mean by that is that really there are some people out there who get it. Oh, this is all I needed to take the desired effect. I've been taking kratom for 12 years myself, almost every day. And I only take 2 teaspoons at a time, tops. Sometimes maybe a little more, maybe. But there are people out there who are like, oh yeah, I take 3 tablespoons at a time. And I'm like, why? You know? Just like the guys who tell you they smoke an ounce of weed a day. Why? You're an idiot. You know, why are you taking a quarter sheet of acid? Why are you eating a half ounce of mushrooms? Stupid. Like, it's pointless. It doesn't do what it needs to do because every drug has a dose, a proper dose that has to be done. And that might vary by person. But anybody who's been in the psychedelic world remembers Keandi Lee from, what was that, fucking 5-10 years ago now? Keandi Lee was this, like, I don't know if he was actually from Africa or not, but I think it was a black dude. And he took like an ounce of mushrooms, and there was this YouTube video about it, and he was explaining how he like saw the Predator, like from the movie, walk through his room, stuff like that. And my whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, that's not what matters. It doesn't matter what you saw. It matters what you gained and what you learned. My experience was that I think I've learned what I need from psychedelics because I don't need to brag or talk about them anymore. They've done their duty. And so, but when I continue to do them, it's like reopening that book and revisiting that idea. So, yeah, I love discussing psychedelics. Tom Brady. Oh, shit. Switch Jim says Nancy Reagan put the fried brain on drugs. Yeah, she did. I remember that. I was around in those days, and I totally remember when those commercials came out. This is your brain on drugs, a little fried egg. And you're like, what are you talking about? And I want to tell you, when that commercial came out, I'd never even done drugs. Just like the same thing that happened to me at school. In junior high, they sent me into a drug class because they thought I looked like a guy who might do drugs. Because I wore, like, you know, kind of heavy metal shit, and I had a mullet. I'd never done any drugs, and then I met all the druggies in the school. It's another fucked up thing that the school system does, or did. I don't know if they're still doing that shit, but sending you to an anti-drug PSA class, all you do is meet other drug users, and you're like, oh, tell me more about this drug that looks so fun, you know? Oh, Bobby saw pink elephants. It's just fucked up. Kill Tony. Jesse says, Spinning Wheel says, anyone else watching Monday Football? Jesse's like, I'm watching Kill Tony. World peace. Go vegan, says Wagner. It's funny, I actually have, I have a really different opinion on veganism. I'll go into detail if anybody wants to, but everything eats something. And once you've done the philosophic digging into life itself and death and rebirth, you realize, it makes no sense to be vegan. In fact, our bodies desire some of these, not just the proteins, but, some of these harder to get vitamins. And yeah, people say, well, you can get these things from taking supplements. And you can, but what natural foods will keep you totally nourished from just vegetables? If you were just to eat raw vegetables your whole life, you'd be sick as shit. And all vegans I know just look sick and scrawny and weak and pale. And I don't mean that offensively to anyone, but it's true. Humans aren't vegans. I got canines for a reason. And I think that being omnivores is just fine with me. I love chicken. I love beef. My lunchtime hamburgers and my Five Guys burgers. It's not about selfishness, and I don't buy into the argument of, eating meat is cruel kind of thing. It's just not for me personally, anyway. Spinning Wheel says chat being taken over by Vegan Nation low key. No, that's funny. Yeah, I don't mind. Everybody has their own values and their own opinions on what they think is important. Some people think veganism is for them, and if it is, then I say go for it. There's nothing wrong with being vegan, but there is everything wrong with being vegan and telling other people they should be vegan. So as long as you're a person who enjoys being vegan but doesn't care if other people eat meat, so be it. You know, the fact about cows is that the reason why we're having a lot of problems in the Midwest and some of the plains is because originally there were a lot of herd animals out there. If you let cows plow up the seeds and the grass, then they actually help to cultivate and get some of that grass seed down into the ground, and also their manure helps to fertilize it. Hooved animals were extremely important to the plains and always have been. And we're learning every year as we go that proper sustainable herd of cattle that are out grazing can actually benefit the land and benefit people. And I know it's sad that animals get killed, but you know what? Plants do too, and plants are alive just as much as animals. Where we draw the line is when we see their eyeballs and we think that they care about us. But anyway, the buffalo used to run all around the west out here where I live, and or at least further east from here. I'm in the Portland area, but I've been to Buffalo Jump, Montana, and some of those places, and God, they're beautiful. But anyway, different topic. Chris says, Josh, have you ever took so much psychedelics that you could not see people and objects anymore? I don't know if that's a thing. Interesting question. That's a great question, actually. No, I haven't. I have the most, let me put it this way, the most I've ever taken of acid was, it doesn't matter because acid, you can put so much on one dose that it could be stronger than like 20 hits of weaker acid. So I won't even use that as an example. But for mushrooms, there are two of the strongest types of psychedelic mushrooms in the cubensis realm. One they call golden teachers, and they are very strong. The other ones are called penis envies. They're both extremely strong, and I don't recall which of them these were, but my buddy came over. He said, I've got a half ounce of, I think it was penis envy, actually. And he's like, we should go take some in the woods. So we got in my bus or car, or whatever it was at the time, drove up to the woods, hiked down this trail and into this clearing, started a campfire, hung out, and had a few beers, and ate some dinner. And then we laid back on this tarp with our back. I have a down comforter. He had a sleeping bag. And we started rolling them up and just taking them like kind of capsules. That's how we would do it. We'd like just kind of crumple it up and just try to swallow, because they were pretty dry and strong and smaller mushrooms, which even makes them even stronger sometimes. And by the time we got down a ways, I was like, how much have we taken? He goes, I don't know. This is all we got left. And it was just some crumbs. So we had split an entire half ounce. So I ate 7.5 grams of penis envies. And that night, from like sundown, we just laid there laughing and got to the point where it's not that I couldn't see anything, but that everything just starts to kind of blend into this weird, it's very hard to describe. But the stars were like three-dimensional. The whole sky becomes like, you can see how almost ancestors picked out these constellations. Like your brain sees things differently. That was the night we saw a UFO that actually stopped over our heads. It was really weird, and I won't go into that story because nobody would believe me anyway. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy night. That was about the closest, but I've never actually, there was another time actually, yes, when we were sitting in this very room. Oh my God, I was probably sitting almost right where I'm sitting right now, but just over here. My buddy Joel was sitting here, Traveler. You guys might have seen him if you're an old subscriber. And we took 5 grams each of really strong mushrooms, all ground up, so they hit you quicker that way. And we downed it and drank it with homemade absinthe. And then we ate some more mushrooms. Yeah, that was fucked up, dude. That time I got up and I walked out the door and I tried to go outside to have a smoke because I still smoked back then. And I went out there and I couldn't see. I like literally everything was right in my face. Like I don't even know how I made it out there. I came back and I sat down. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot do that ever again. I had to wait to come down. So yeah, you can't get to the point where you take so many psychedelics that, not that you can't see anything, but just that everything looks so fucked up that you don't want to see anything. It's not a bad thing, though. It's actually kind of a nice feeling. Uh, as long as you don't try to push yourself. That's the thing with psychedelics. Don't do it ever in a place where you're maybe inconvenienced. That's the key. That's why I don't take them more often. If somebody could inconvenience me, knock on my door, bother me, if my kids are home, any of that, I will not do them. I have to be in a full mindset to just chill and not give a fuck. And then about 3 in the morning, I get really hungry for like sherries or pancakes, some kind of. It's weird. Whenever I take acid, I go out and I eat and I get hungry. And for a lot of people, they're the opposite. They're like, I never get hungry. And that was the same way when I was a kid. But Daniel says, brother, I first saw your videos when you were wearing that white lab coat and discussing herbs. Nice. Nice. Appreciate that. Says I was depressed, kind of weird, but I see you as a friend, so thanks. Well, thank you too, man. You are a friend. If I'm a friend, you're a friend. And I remember that lab coat video. That was the Kratom video that, if it's the same one, it got like 200,000 views. And I got a lot of shit for it. People are like, you think you're a doctor? I'm like, no, dude, it's like a science. It was during the Soak, the local Burning Man thing. We had a science theme, so I bought a bunch of lab coats, but people are so serious. Shane Coker says DMT. Oh boy. Ooh-wee. Should we talk about that? The other day, my friend came over on New Year's Eve, and I'd talked about Deemsters quite a bit in the past, and he'd never done it. And he had just had a wild hair up his ass because I got out my little kit, and I had some. I was like, oh, it's DMT. He's like, I want to try it. I'm like, right now? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well. I pulled out this little, like, you know what they look like, a crack pipe. It's just like a bubble on the end with like a hole. And it still had a bunch of residue from like 4 years ago. And I was like, oh, there's probably a bunch in here. I kind of melted it down, and I was like, oh, just hit that if you really want. And he's like, yeah. And he took it. It was priceless. Sat back on the couch. This feels good. It was so awesome. I mean, DMT is something else. I can't even describe DMT, and I can't even explain the weirdness of it. Don't need to. It's totally different from smoking it than when you take like ayahuasca, which I have not done, and I don't want to. I found the psychedelics that work for me, and I'm happy. The only exception, other ones I might try again, would be like 2CB, which I really liked. But yeah, DMT is a rare thing that I will only do once in a while. I might have it around for years and barely touch it. It's for special occasions, and yeah, it puts you in a weird rabbit hole. It's where you, if you've ever seen, okay, I don't remember what it's called now. There's an AI app where when you apply it, it makes everything look like faces of dogs. Usually it's the Shiba Inu one, and there's a YouTube channel called Poof, Pouff, I think it is, where they have people. There's one called like grocery shopping, and it's somebody walking through the store just making a video, but everything is turned into dogs, and they're all psychedelic and like colorful. It's kind of like that. That's the only way I can describe some of the experiences. But people talk about wizards and elves and everything else, and that just gets just too weird and hard to explain. So DMT, I don't, put it this way, I don't think that DMT is a great tool for expanding the depth of your subconscious, but maybe just kind of an oh shit factor, if that makes sense. Mang says, the amount of torture and horror the factory farmed animals has gone through is definitely cruel. I'm not vegan myself, but there's no denying that. No, I do not deny that. It is horrible. I try to eat local meat. I try to buy, when I do buy meat, I try to get stuff that's sustainably, as they claim. But, ultimately, I've really come to the conclusion that there's only so much you can do by taking a stand, and I just try to get sustainable food. I don't go to McDonald's and shit, so... I eat good meat if I'm going to eat meat. Wagner says, no more violence. I wish that was possible. I really do. Ryan Kaki, interesting name. Are you related to Leo Kaki? Probably been asked that. He said LSD versus shrooms. LSD is square and shrooms are round. That's the best description I've ever come up with. they are unique in their own ways. LSD allows me to be a little more social. It keeps me up a lot longer, so I end up staying up till the dawn. And I can have a lot of fun with people and ideas, and it can be a little more colorful if it's good stuff. Mushrooms, on the other hand, are very more internal and very more personal oriented. So if you want something that will be more external, psychedelics like acid are great. And if you want something to really go within yourself, mushrooms. And that's the difference I can see. Spinning Wheel says Dead and Co. Final Gorge shows. Yeah, we're going to those, and we're also going to San Francisco for the San Fran shows. And we only got tickets for one night because Ticketmaster is a piece of shit. I was going to make a whole video about their dynamic pricing and how they fuck people over. And then Taylor Swift fans got on it, and now they're all freaking out. Whatever. I'm just not buying tickets till I get there, and I'm just going to buy them at the show. Because I know that I'll be able to probably go up to the box office and get one for $60 instead of having to pay like $300 for a fucking nosebleed seat or something. But yeah, I am going to those shows, and I hope to see people there. Thank you all. I appreciate the support. Shane says, what do you think about the Ram Dass experience where he met the guy in India that gave him LSD and had no effect? You hear about that? Yes, I did. You're talking about when Ram Dass went to meet Maharaji, which was his guru, and he said the guy took it and he was shocked that there was no experience. I find that to be an anecdote. So, in other words, a story that's not easy to confirm or really, know how much it might have affected him. I don't necessarily buy that one. I think that there may be people who have evolved. At the point when I heard the story, like a decade ago, I thought that Maharaji maybe had evolved to some state of being where it didn't affect him as much. And that may be true. Or maybe the acid just got messed up in his wallet, carrying it over there. Or maybe Maharaji was bullshitting because he didn't want to admit that something was strong, like that he was being affected by it. I don't know. It is an interesting story, though. But I do think we can reach certain states of being and mindset where we are kind of already in that state, I guess. But we can't carry them on, nor would I want to. And I think that would be a little sketchy. Jesse's like, they make DMT vape cartridges. Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Yeah. Oh, then Al says it's known that Ram Dass made that up. See? Well, Al he knows a lot about that kind of stuff. I was fascinated with Ram Dass for a while. And actually, my boss really liked the guy, too. So here's the story. The guy I work for building tiny homes, my boss, he's like 60. He told me a story. He was actually down at it was his first rainbow gathering, I think it was, he said. And he was hitchhiking back this way. And a dude pulled over and picked him up. And it was Ram Dass in a rental car. So I don't know how much he's told the story a couple of times. I'm not a liar, so I'm sure it's a true story. It's just really funny. It was a long time ago, and I just thought of how funny that was. Like, what a small world, and how he said he wanted to ask him questions, but that he just felt weird. He didn't want to be that guy. It's like, asking him the whole time, and yeah, I don't know what to think about that. I think, okay, you want to talk about fake stories? You just look at Carlos Castaneda, right, and Don Juan. All these books that were written about a guy who didn't really exist, yet the stories resonate with people. In fact, The Art of Dreaming, the book I have from Carlos Castaneda, there's a lot of bullshit in there, but it still taught me how to think about my dreaming differently, and that's what led me into lucid dreaming, where I was able to actually control my dreams, and I got to a point where I could fly. If anybody's interested in knowing more about lucid dreaming, I got really good at it. At least once or twice a week, I'd have these dreams where I could fly, and I remember manifesting things, and I got to go to the bathroom. It's been an hour and a half. So when I get back, I'll tell you what happened in that lucid dream. So I'll just have to leave you hanging for a moment. One more beer. All right. One more beer and one more half hour maybe of discussion here. And as I said before, I'm standing out of frame for the moment right here because I can't consume anything on camera. And that brings me back to what I was talking about earlier with not being able, not feeling awkward talking about drugs because I don't want kids doing drugs. I really don't. You know, I think it's bad. And it makes me feel awkward about the things I've said in the past. And I guess that's growth. But at any rate, I was talking about my lucid dreams and I left you hanging. Yeah, I've had quite a few weird lucid dreams. I think I was telling you about one in particular, but I don't remember which one it was. And I said something happened that I was going to tell you, but now I don't remember what it was. That's okay. You can remind me if it matters. So, I'm going to flip back through the comments before I continue here and finish my video, because I have a lot more to talk about. Al Ohm says, Wim Hof method is Tibetan breath yoga taken to an extreme. Yeah. Laurelyn says, the Carlos Castaneda books were crazy cool with Don Juan, and realized it was all fictional. I still like it, but wow, I'm not sure what to say, except nothing bad. Yeah. Spinning Wheels, is it possible that Jesus was God and Trey was Jesus? Nope. Because Trey is Trey, and Jerry was Jerry. Jesse says, wacky tobacco. A lucid dream, you had an intense experience. Yeah, I did. I don't remember exactly what it was, though. I had many. So I started off with learning to fly, and I would literally fly like a piece of paper. I jumped off my roof, and I tried to fly across the street, and I kind of wavered like this into the ground. Didn't get hurt. One time, and let me tell you, this shit's fucking crazy. I have two books. There was The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda, and then another one called How to Dream, or I think it was How to Dream. I still got it around here somewhere. But it was a thick book about lucid dreaming and how to train yourself to lucid dream. And I read the whole thing, and what it said in there was, get up at 5 in the morning, or so. And my wife at that point, this was like 10 years ago or more, 15 years ago maybe, she was working early shift. She was working, her restaurant was open for breakfast, so she'd go to work at like 6. So she'd get up at 5, and I'd be like, well, wake me up, babe. And then so she woke me up, and I would read like a couple chapters of that book. And then when she went to work, I'd go back to bed. And then you have your craziest dreams at the end of the night. And oh my God, dude, it was like, I remember going to bed one night and saying, I want to meet my spirit guide. I want to meet my spirit guide. Because at that point, I was really into the woo-woo shit. And since then, I don't know what to think about spirit guides and all that. I just don't give a shit anymore. But at that point, I thought it'd be kind of interesting. And so I have this dream that I'm walking along this. I remember it's like, tall grass, like brown hay like grass on both sides of this dirt road. And I'm walking along, and I realize I become lucid. I'm walking along with this little black kid. He's probably like 8, maybe 8 or 9 years old. This little black kid with a hat on, I think, and like a straw hat. And we're walking along, and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, what's up? And, he's like, and I point to this hill where there's this house on this hill. And I was like, it was kind of on a little ridge, just very slight. A little bump, and I was like, you think I could fly off that hill? And the guy's like, if you want to, or the kid says that. And so we walk up that road together, and I stood on the edge of the hill, and he's like encouraging me. He's like, you can. And so I like jumped off the little slight hill, and I floated all the way across the plains. And I woke up, and then I had a dream, sometime later where I would I shot up in the air out of prison, like 1,000 feet, and landed outside, and I was screaming at the guards to let the other guys go, and I started getting a little more empowered in my dreams. And then something happened. I hit a wall. It wasn't that I couldn't lucid dream anymore. It wasn't that I wasn't interested. I realized something that of all the bullshit I've watched about dreams, dream translations, and lucid dreaming, because I was really into that for a while, I've realized nobody ever covers the basic topic of don't interfere with your subconscious, you idiot. In other words, let your dreams do what they're going to do. You don't need to control them. You don't need to be in charge. It becomes an obsession. You might want to go to sleep so you can have a dream because it's like reality. And anybody who's never lucid dreamed doesn't understand that. I got to the point where I was so excited to go to sleep because it's not like life was ruined or anything, but I was like, okay, tonight, what am I going to do? And I realized my brain's not able to process its own subconscious thoughts and then relay that to me because I'm interfering with that consciously. Think of lucid dreaming as thinking during meditation, and you'll understand where I'm coming from. It's kind of unavoidable sometimes, but generally your brain's better off doing things on its own. So that was my revelation, and that's why I stopped lucid dreaming completely. And haven't had an interest in probably like 7 or 8 years. I had my moment in the sun. It was fun. And at the same time, that's when I was studying Buddha and, the history of yogis and everything else. And I've become very cynical to it. I can't help it. It's not that I think those are bad teachings as far as like Eastern mysticism, things like that. It's just that it's not going to solve your problem. Enlightenment doesn't exist. It's something that's an onion. You peel and peel. Layer upon layer, you peel to find. Layer upon layer behind. I said that probably 1,000 times on this channel, but the best quote I ever heard about enlightenment. And in the end, it's all peel. There's nothing left. You're just getting rid of shit that you don't need to become your true self, which is something that you don't just find, you have to develop. I think this is the maybe where I become cynical with like Eastern stuff. It's like, it's not that you have to eliminate what you've been taught and just, be your true self. You're not born knowing. You have to develop these traits, and you have to do them, as I said before, through a foundation. It's like, it goes back to the beginning of what I was talking about in this whole podcast. Show your work. Be able to prove you've gotten to where you are through not just hearing some guy on YouTube say, oh, you need to be like this, and be like, oh, now I'm enlightened. No, you have to go through the whole fucking process. Just like learning math or English, anything else. It's hearing versus learning and guessing versus knowing. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter, like, to me or to anyone else whether other people have attained that, but you'll know within your own heart if you're full of shit, right? And I think a lot of people know they're full of shit. And it's a tricky one to talk about, I suppose. Dreams were pretty cool, but, I'm reading through the comments now real quick. Yeah, lucid dream. Jesse says lucid dreams are like life on your own terms with no limitations. Yep. Well, Alum says the worst practitioner will tell you they are great. The best will admit that they struggle. Well, that is really Zen, isn't it, my friend? And the idea that this is why guys like Sadhguru are complete bullshit to me. And I'm sure that there's, out of the 30 people watching, there's at least 1 or 2 people out there who probably like Sadhguru. And probably 20 who don't know who he is. He's just another guy who has a big beard and wears a turban and has an accent so people think he's wise. He's got some good shit to say, but he's just full of shit. He's just complete nonsense. And for the amount of people and the way that his fans will attack people, it's the same way I feel about Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle. People love him, but he's dry as a bean. He's got nothing to offer to me that's anything new. It doesn't mean that other people can't learn from him. It doesn't mean that people can't benefit. And this is the thing. When you dismiss others and what they believe, they get upset. They get pissed off. And that's not my intention. Because really, I don't give a shit what other people believe. I believe very little, honestly, when it comes to like spiritual truths. But like I said, nature teaches me a hell of a lot more than I've ever learned from man. Even the greatest guru comes up short when it comes to, enduring qualities, right? They want to tell you how to. It's even which position to put your legs when you're meditating, right? Sit in the lotus position. You got to sit this way. You got to do this. You got to say this in this order. All of it is bullshit, I guess, in a sense, but it comes down to the practice of the belief system and what people get out of it. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't have them. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying we shouldn't believe anything and we shouldn't care. Just be very careful about who you believe. And if there's one guy telling you he knows what's best, you need to really run for the hills. But I guess people don't heed that warning because, we voted for a president like that. We will continue to believe people who tell you that they are the only ones that can fix your problems. It's weird. It's really weird. Everybody wants a guru, I guess. I don't ever want to be that guy. I don't ever want people to think that I'm that guy because I never will be that guy because I'll always tell you I'm full of shit. But I do my best. Couple comments to flip through here. Lucid dreaming is wonderful. It is. It's fun. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's talking shit about Sad Guru. Yeah. Yeah. I don't honestly think that any of these guys are worth a fucking damn because they probably wouldn't stand behind the camera to vape and drink a beer. I am the greatest guru. You should believe what I say. Believe what I know. And if you don't donate to my channel, then God will leave you behind. It's crazy that people actually say that shit. You look at preachers. You know who Kenneth Copeland is? He's the guy who was confronted by a reporter as he was getting onto his private jet. And she said, don't you think that your supporters or your people might need more than your need for 2 different jets? And he points his finger at her and screams, don't you dare accuse me. And he's got these wide eyes. Like Kenneth Copeland literally in that video looks like an actual demon. Like he's probably, if I don't even believe in demons or monsters, but looking at him in that very picture, he looks like an actual demon or an evil person. Probably the closest I've ever seen. And the irony is that that very same guy that I think would be the only dude I've ever seen that's really a demon claims to be a preacher and somebody who has millions of Christian followers that send him billions of dollars to be saved. And people, therefore, are stupid. A lot of people. And it's very unfortunate because how do we save people from believing in gurus and preachers, prophets? Whenever I make a video and I say something like, all prophets are bullshit, half the time I pull it. I don't even end up posting it. And I've made a lot of them. And it's because I don't want to be that guy that ruins somebody's good time. It's the same way that feels if somebody believes something and I say, well, actually, it's like this. I always feel like an asshole. Because even if I'm giving them facts, or facts as I know them, I feel like I don't want to ruin somebody's good time. I feel like this is why so many people hate science. And I've thought about this a lot. They hate science because by using scientific inquiry, it's not that they just hate scientists and they don't understand what the scientific process even is, but You do an experiment to prove if something's true. Then you do an experiment again. Then you do an experiment again. Hey, if they conclude it's true, you've done science. It's that simple. You have a theory, and then you try to prove that theory. And the reason people hate it is because it's disproven so much of what people want to believe. The mysterious things, Everybody's mad because you're saying my aliens are bolt lightning, or you're saying my God is just a mental, whatever it might be. And does that really lessen the value of what everything is at all? In other words, the fact that we wake up every day in this mysterious world and try to locate our fucking socks and we try to locate our coffee, and we get everything together, and we finally get our eyes open, and we move about our day, and then we go to bed and we do it all over again. We build up kind of a idea of what we think everything is, and half the time it's bullshit. Let me reiterate that. All the time it's bullshit. Every single time. I used to smoke on camera. I've got some videos of myself about 10 years ago where I was sitting out in the front of my garage here, just smoking cigarettes and making videos. Back then my beard was gone, I had short hair, and my teeth were really bad. I was missing a tooth up in the upper right before my canine there, and I had a little rotten spot between my front two teeth. It's weird to look back and think that I looked so horrible back then. But that one day I'll look back on this and might feel just as stupid because I was vaping, because I was drinking a beer, whatever it might be. And sometimes I beat up on myself, and I do so because I want others to know that everybody is vulnerable. To back up for a minute, take a guy like Andrew Tate. I don't even want to say his name. Andrew Taint. I'm surprised nobody calls him Taint. But the guy is like the most pathetic version of a man, that, in my opinion, right? The guy that claims to be the alpha male, tries to talk tough, and brags about his cars, that gets owned by Greta Thunberg, right? I mean, this guy is probably, to, to most men, most, let's say, any flannel wearing lumberjack would just look at this guy and go, what the fuck, But he claims to be the alpha, right? And I just thought about this, kind of how pathetic people are, and how pathetic we are to believe other people know what's best because they tell you they know what's best, and they know what it means to be a man. They know what it means to be a musician. They know what it means to be an actor. They know what it means to, make videos, whatever it might be. People have this very arrogant kind of attitude about them, and I'm so glad that I learned a little bit of humility in my day, to be able to at least admit that I'm kind of a douche too, that I make mistakes, that I fuck up, that I don't always know what I'm talking about, but I damn well do my best to try. I don't lie to people. I don't bullshit people. I don't sugarcoat things. I don't use clickbait, or not just online, but in my daily life. Clickbait is not something. It's just something that was transferred online. Clickbait is like your friend texts you and says, "Oh, I'm feeling so crappy today." Oh, okay. What's wrong? That kind of stuff. Like, you want to care for other people, but you also realize that some people are drama queens and kings and always make things seem worse than it is. They worry about whether it's their own health and their own life or the world in general. Oh my God, there's going to be a war. Oh my God, there's going to be this problem. Have you seen what they're doing to the cows? Look at what they're doing to the children. And, in the big picture, when you step back, nature's not going to give a shit. In a million years, all this will be erased. So maybe we can at least enjoy what we have now. It doesn't mean we have to be abusive, cruel to each other, because we don't want to be. Most of us don't want to be harmful to us, ourselves, or others, or the environment. Most of us don't want to slaughter animals or harm anyone around us. Most of us just want to live a good life. And I think that we're obscuring that by all these different bullshit desires and commercials convincing you need this and that to be happy. What a fucked up world, people. I mean, really, what a fucked up world. Spinning Wheels says, Tom Brady is my guru. Not gonna lie. So be it, man. I mean, that's fucking great. If Tom Brady is your dude, then so be it. I don't know shit about Tom Brady. I know that South Park made a hilarious fucking rip on him, but other than that, I don't follow sports at all whatsoever. Yeah, maybe he's a fucking guru in football cleats. I have no idea. Can't say that I can even relate to that. You take the time to share it. Thanks, Vic Dick, or Vic Dish. You're not full of poo. You have much wisdom. I appreciate that. Ryan says, my grandma saw him talking about him taking Viagra while preaching. You must be talking about that fucking Kenneth Copeland fucker. Ryan says, I believe we all have the answers to our questions if we really search. I agree. Jesse says, have you witnessed a UFO? Yes, I have. And it was pretty crazy. A narc? I missed that one. Alpha males. Yeah, it's pretty funny. People like that deep down are not alpha. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly it. An alpha will never tell you they're an alpha. If I walk into a room, I'm alpha. Or maybe I'm not. It doesn't matter because there's no such thing. In like people say, even in wolf packs, there's no alpha. The alpha is a totally misunderstood term based on research we've done about wolf packs and other animals. But let's put it this way. In the great apes or in chimpanzees, who do you think's in charge? Do you think it's the alpha male? It's the woman. It's always the woman. Because the women are smarter. It's the way it's always been. People hate fucking admitting that. It's that women may not have the same capacity for tolerance of certain bullshit, or maybe they can't handle gross things. Whatever, people have their ideas of women and men. But women know, and they understand the needs of people. And ultimately, life is about community and people. So when you get right down to it, women understand things often a lot better than men do when it comes to longevity and long-term growth within a family and within people's minds. At least that's my experience. Spinning Wheels says Tom Brady. Oh my God, dude, it sounds like you want to suck Tom Brady off. No offense, I'm totally joking, but damn, dude, he's just a football player. I mean, but everybody's got their heroes, right? So, I don't know. Laurelyn says, have a question. How do you deal with threats or whatever when making videos? I just ignore them. I make a joke of it, make light of it. I haven't really had any in a long time. The only time I usually get threats is if I'm like threatening somebody's feelings and they get butt hurt. There was this one guy who actually used to comment all the time and he'd leave stupid shit, so I started responding, and then he actually threatened to come and kill my family. Yeah, and I think I still have a screenshot of that somewhere. Maybe it was an email, I don't even remember, but then the guy started posting again comments on my channel about how much he liked my channel, People have issues. I don't take shit seriously, and I don't really believe people are going to actually come attack me, so I don't really worry about it. But if they do, then I've got some fucking buckshot for them. Believe that. Lighted Dawes. Tom Brady will be remembered long after the apocalypse. Carpo loves the Olympic Games, says Freestyler. Yes, I love the Olympics. I can't even remember the last time I ever wait, I've never watched the Olympics. KC says an alpha respects his wife by being loyal, taking care of his kids, and putting his family first and being honest. That right there is a perfect little box of what I think most people would expect, yeah, out of a true alpha. A lot of guys, it's funny, these guys who are alphas, a lot of these guys actually have kids, but they're like non-present fathers. And then they go online and they make these channels where they're talking about how they're this alpha. They can't even raise their own boy. Like, if you have a child, you had a child with someone, and you leave and you call yourself an alpha, you're not an alpha. You're a piece of shit. You're not doing what men do, which is raise their kids. So, in my opinion, you're really just looking like an idiot. And that's how I feel about guys like, I made a video the other day and I talked some shit about Andrew Tate, and that a lot of, most people didn't care, but a couple people were really bothered. They like Andrew Tate. They think he's a great guy. He got cheated. He got, dude, the guy says everything himself. I didn't even know who Andrew Tate was a month ago, okay? Don't care. I don't follow these guys. There's another couple of dudes named Fresh and Fit, and they're just, God, they're the weakest. They tell these stories about how they got laid by all these girls, and it's like, dude, God, you're so pathetic. It's almost so cringe. Like, if I was hanging out with dudes who said the shit these guys say, I would feel so awkward and cringe, and they would seem so small to me. Like, but for some reason, when people do it online, the window to the internet makes them seem like they're legit. But, after the podcast is over, they go back in the room and jack off and take a shower and go to bed crying like they do. It was a bunch of pathetic little whiny men, wannabe men. That's how I feel anyway. Hey, I sleep well, okay? Whatever people think about me, I'm not worrying about having my door kicked in for sex trafficking and shit like that, or tax, issues, or ripping off other people, or starting a $50 a month course called Hustler University, where I trick young men into thinking that they're going to actually get ahead by drop shipping. Dude, these guys are really fucking pathetic, I'm telling you. Cope. Cope. Alum, I love that. He says, I saw the signature of a motivational speaker. Let's just say Cope. Yeah. Well, motivational speakers today are nothing more than life coaches on steroids. I don't buy into any of it. And I feel kind of weird talking about it sometimes because, I know a lot of people who claim to get benefit from these people. But I feel like it's the same way that people get benefit from taking, taking antidepressants for 3 months and it finally kicked in. Hey, maybe your depression went away. I'm not a big fan of the pharma industry for curing depression or anxiety. Maybe short term, but, a lot of this is a lot of placebo and bullshit. And, yeah, I don't know. The motivational speakers and the, what you would call life coaches, I feel bad because I actually made a video a while back, or a live cast, where I talked some shit about life coaches, and somebody was like, oh, I'm a life coach. And I'm like, well, sorry, your job's stupid. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't help people. What you're doing is you're helping people in a very small window. And that's, Eric, dude, that's too kind of you. What are you doing? You already donated, didn't you? You don't have to do that, man. Eric says, I wish I could afford a tiny home. Dude, Eric, thank you for the $20, man. more than I could ever expect for anyone. I don't expect donations on this channel. It's fucking awesome. KC says, I want to build one. I don't know a damn thing about building one. Carpo's going to build me one. Hey, you guys want to know about tiny homes? Look, I love building tiny houses, dude. It's been a passion. I've been wanting to do one of my own, and I can't afford it myself. So obviously, I can't just go out and buy the materials. So I started working for a guy that's making them, and he's really cool. Like I said, he's Buddhist mentality. Really cool guy. I don't want to get too much into his personal life, but really cool guy. Smokes joints all blunt. Well, I guess they're not blunts. Anyway, doesn't matter. He's cool. And he gives me my space. We work 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Pretty lax hours, whatever. Show up whenever, leave whenever. And me and him build tiny homes together. We had like 5 guys on the job at once, or 4 guys, but people came and went, and now it's just me and him, and we're busting out. And we're building a tiny house right now that's like, it's like a 30-footer or 28 or 30-footer. And then it's like 8.5 feet wide, but we got like 13 feet high. We've got 2 lofts in it. And we just finished framing it out. We're getting ready to insulate it. I was supposed to work today, but my boss texted me at like 8 this morning. He's like, I feel like shit. No work today. I was like, that's all right. I could do some other shit. It's MLK Day. Making an excuse for a holiday and do some fun things and make videos and maybe do a live cast. So here I am. But tiny houses really can be done affordably. The one we're building now, I think we're trying to do it as quick and affordable as possible. And I think it's going to be around 60 grand, which is a lot. But think about it for what it really is. It's a fucking huge tiny house on a triple axle trailer for 60 grand. People go out and they buy a stupid pickup or a car for that much, and then it depreciates in value. At least with a house, you've got something that you can live in. And and that's for a huge one. Eventually, what I'm looking to do with my wife and I, we want to buy land. We want to buy some acreage, a house with a barn. It's very hard because I don't want to move too far away, and it's very expensive to live here. But I want a place with a large enough shop that I can wheel a trailer in and start building my own tiny houses to sell and make them affordable. Make reasonably priced ones for like 15, 20 grand, It's hard to make them for less than that because it's expensive, man. I mean, if you want plumbing and you want all that shit in there, it's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you a lot, so. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate you, man. Laurelyn says, in Oregon, the regulations are more relaxed about tiny houses than California. Yeah, Laurelyn, I completely would agree on that. In fact, I would never live in California. They have gone so fucking ridiculously left. I never thought I'd say that, but like, their regulations have just ended up costing and causing problems within businesses. Absolutely ludicrous rules in California. But in Oregon, Washington's even better, I think. But yeah, you can still put them on land without a whole lot of shit. We go through inspections pretty quick, but we build all our shit with 2x4 walls. If you see some of the tiny homes, they're built with very thin, like 2x2 walls, not a lot of insulation. These things are built like houses, and they're built to last. And so it takes a long time to do it right. Brandon 22 says, how is your no kratom journey going? Do you think it's possible to just once a week? I've been off since the new year. Good for you, man. I fucking thank you for that inspiration. I appreciate that other people have recognized that I said I was going to quit, but also have been able to quit themselves, because I started taking less and less, and actually over the last few years I've got to the point where I haven't been taking any kratom past like 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. Like, I take a little in the morning before work and then some at lunch, and then that's it. Try not to take any in the evening. But my bigger issue has been drinking. I don't want to get into that because it's very private, and don't like talking about that shit because I don't want it recorded online forever and ever and ever. You know what I mean? I don't know why. It's not because I don't want people to know. It's because maybe insurance companies for the future. I have no idea, but yeah, I've been drinking more than I did before, and I never drank alcohol before 5 years ago. And a lot, like 4 or 5 years ago, I just started drinking some Jägermeister, and it kind of moved up. I mean, I drank before, but not very rarely. I was just a stoner, and now it became kind of like a daily. Well, have a few beers, have a few beers. Apocalypse IPA has been my thing. My wife will tell you, yeah, those 12 packs pile up pretty quick, and I don't really. So I tried to quit. I didn't drink any beer yesterday at all. Which I guess if I was a full blown, alkie, I probably wouldn't have been able to cope with the whole day without booze. I didn't even think, it wasn't a big deal at all. It's just I enjoy it. I don't abuse it. I just enjoy it. And that's what makes it weird. So with Kratom, it's the same way. I don't abuse it. I don't feel like I take too much. I feel like I take just enough. So it's really hard to want to quit something when you don't feel like it's harming you. I guess I want to quit Kratom because everybody else says they want to quit. It's a weird thing. Not not the only reason, but also because I'm hoping it will improve my appetite again. Maybe, I don't know. We're always looking to change shit to feel better, right? KC says 30 grand if you build your own. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I need some kratom, but I haven't taken any, so I'll be alright. Laura Lynn says, move to Oregon or Washington, not California. Yes, Washington is a great fucking state. I love it here. A bushcraft hut in New Zealand, says Logic of the Rainbow. Oh boy, that would be fucking cool. I built a sweat lodge with my friend, like a dome sweat lodge a long time ago. It was pretty badass, but I, if I had all the supplies in front of me, the money I needed, and the time, and the land, watch me go. I mean, wind me up and watch me go. I could build anything. In fact, if there are any millionaires out there who want me to come out and build something on your land, you give me a few acres, and I'd be more than happy to come out and build anything you want. It's funny because I know carpentry all the way from the ground up. I can do anything, but I don't have the money to invest yet. And if I sold my house, I could do it, but then I'd be out of house and I'd be trapped somewhere else. I also have family and friends here like everyone else. That makes it really tricky. I don't know. That makes it difficult to want to leave. V Dick says, what is kratom? Yeah, it's Kratom. It's just a plant from Southeast Asia. It's a tree, and you grind the leaves up, and they contain a compound called mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine, which are compounds that are similar to opiates. So they help to cure pain, and they also give a little bit of a stimulation and motivation. Kratom's been a godsend for me because I suffered from sciatic pain for a long time. But when the physical pain is gone, it's easy to say, well, I need to get away from it. And it's a little harder because it's a kind of a psychological addiction. But at the same time, it's a good one. It's like drinking coffee if you don't overdo it. But recently, working again, my shoulder's been kind of messed up. And so it's actually helping me to deal with my actual physical pain again. Well, I better get going here pretty quick. I'm going to go pee, and then I'm going to come back for 5 minutes. I know, more information than you wanted, but, that's life. You know, I can't imagine what it would be like to have like thousands of people watching my live cast. You know, people out there who have a lot of viewers, it must just feel awkward to do a live cast because I'm sure you've all seen the way that the comments just keep flipping up the chart and just flipping up, flipping up. It's like I don't know. I guess Discord is like that on steroids. Have we become too preoccupied and distracted by like quick information, quick data? What happened to us? For anybody who didn't come at the beginning of this video, I covered a few topics that you should probably hear, and I'm just going to gloss over them, but the whole point of this was a lot of people pretend like they know what they're talking about. Show your work. Show what you think you know. Do your homework on things. And it's important to learn things versus just guessing them. It's important to know things versus guessing them, and learn things versus hearing them from other people. Build your temple with a strong foundation. You'll have less ambivalence about what you think you know. If you can show your work, it shows that you know what you're talking about. I don't always know what I'm talking about, and when I don't, I will always tell you I don't know for sure. I'm not the kind of person who's going to lie to you. But stop giving your attention away to the bullshit of the world, and you'll probably be a happier person. It's what do we need to know versus what we think we want to know. We cater to peer pressure. We want to fit into a group. We want to be special. We have a very limited attention span, and we have to utilize it properly. Be sure to hit that thumbs up if you're in the new group, because I'm sure you haven't hit it yet, and you probably forgot. What just happened? How did that much money get in there? Did somebody, Eric donated another 20 bucks? What's going on here? $121? I'm actually utterly shocked. That is... Where did that come from? Yeah, no more donations, Eric. You've already hooked me up enough, brother. You're amazing. Well, anyway, I appreciate it. I appreciate you all. And I'm going to flip back up to where my comments were. Here we go. We're almost there. Motivational speakers. We're back to that comment. All right, there we go. Merry holidays. 30K if you build your own. Yeah, 30 grand would build you a pretty nice tiny house if you really wanted to. And I mean, it might not have the fanciest setup. It might not be huge. It might lack some of the... I mean, the ones we build have like USB outlets in the plugs. They've got the best windows. We use heated floors, everything. Let me put it this way. If you were to buy a trailer and build a tiny home on it that would suit you and a couple other people, or one other person maybe, you know, you could do it for like under 20 grand. Or I could do it for under 20 grand. If you had to hire somebody, you probably wouldn't be able to. I could help you with it, but, you know, there's only so much I could do. But, yeah, it's doable. Brandon says he's noticing too many negatives from Kratom. Yeah, that happens, especially if you take too much. So it's hard to know what too much is. And I'll be honest, people ask me, what are your doses on Kratom, right? Like anything else. I'm like, I hate talking about that, but I take a tablespoon and then I hollow it out. So it comes out to about 2 teaspoons. It's a psychological thing. And I do that maybe twice a day. Sometimes I even take a little less. But there was a time when I was taking like 3 or 4 tablespoons a day, which is up to an ounce. I mean, that's a lot. Unnecessary, way too much. And I think it's important that we control all of our intakes of everything. And we can't be just out there. We can't just be out there using every drug all the time as much as we want and thinking that we're going to be able to make it out all right. I mean, it depends on what we're looking for, but ultimately I've seen too many people go downhill, and it's a tough one to cope with. Wait a minute, something's going on here. Hold on a sec. There we go. Oh, okay. I was pushed the wrong button here. God damn it, now I didn't read these. Okay, we were talking about Kratom. Eric, you're too fucking cool. Addicted to Kratom. Are you going to send some Kratoms overseas? No, I still don't do overseas just because it's too risky. Eric says I don't do PayPal. Well, I appreciate it. I don't either, actually. They banned me. I have one, but it's my wife's account. Vic says, can you get prescription or through other means? You should be able to buy it anywhere, but it's a tricky one. Wagner says, I will stop using drugs when I become a father to set an example for my children. Do you meditate or stretch when you wake up? I stretch when I get to work because I'm a carpenter, so I'm always stretching. But no, I don't meditate anymore. I don't need it. I feel pretty good most of the time. Jesse says, have you ever tried the new cannabinoids on the market, Delta 8? No, I have not tried Delta 8 yet. I really have no take on that one yet. I don't know. Thank you, KC. Says he donated $10. I really appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Play a tune on the acoustic, says Jesse. Not right now. Maybe next time. I actually haven't been practicing very much, and I would really like to get back into it, but it's been a while. I've been writing I actually wrote some music today. I was playing on the loop pedal, but I don't feel confident enough to actually play a song right now. Joe's Garage. You must be talking about your, yeah, you must be talking about that, oh, somebody's talking about Delta 8. There we go. No, the Joe's Garage is a Frank Zappa album. I actually have that on vinyl. I think it might be no, it's not a colored vinyl, but it's a good album. It's interesting. Evan says, thoughts on flower combustion versus dry herb vaporizing. Ooh, that's a really good one. When it comes to cannabis, that's a very tricky one. I'll have to stand out of frame to consume my things while I talk about that. I actually think that, now in my experience, I'm biased because I'm a flower consumer. I like flower. I'm not a big fan of hash pens or vaporizing. And I don't know why, other than my own biased conclusions, which is that when I vaporize cannabis versus smoking it, the high is much more airy. It's much more in my head. Whereas when I smoke it, it's much more in my body. Now, I don't know if this has to do with the other cannabinoids that don't get extracted. I don't know if this has to do with water-soluble chemicals that don't get extracted, or something within the plant material itself that hasn't even been identified, because there are hundreds of compounds in there. I really don't know what it is, but all I know is if I take cannabis and I vaporize it in a vaporizer, I smoke it, or I smoke hash oil, I get a very enlightened buzz. But if I smoke it out of bongs, oh no! I just stepped on my glasses and broke them. At least they're my old ones. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bongs over here, plus I've got my other one over there. I'm a big bong fan, and my whole thing is bongs. I'm not a big fan of smoking through anything else. I don't see any need to use. I don't like joints. I don't like pipes. I don't like vaporizers. I don't like hash pens. I like a big fat bud of crystally stinky weed stuck in a huge, deep bong bowl and just hit that motherfucker until I'm just ripped. What can I say? I'm a stoner. So yeah, that's not my. That's my thing. My thoughts on flower combustion versus dry herb. I like it. I like weed. I'm going through the comments again. Is there any pinball in that house? Are you talking about in my house? Fuck, I wish, dude. I'd love to have a pinball machine. That'd be fun as hell. I don't have anything cool, just a bunch of stereo crap. Hope to see you at a Fish show this year. Actually, Fish just announced that they're playing in April up here in Seattle, so I'll definitely be going to that one. Yeah, I hope to see them elsewhere as well. Eric says, I know what it means to really want to play guitar, but when I pick it up, I'm at a music block in my creativity. That's a tricky one. I mean, Eric, do you play guitar regularly? Or, I mean, I should say, did you learn to play guitar? Or did you just pick one up and hope, are you trying to learn? Because that's the difference. I guess it doesn't really matter because often if you didn't learn, you're more inspired to want to learn. But the older we get, the harder it is to learn. When I was about 16, 17, 18, I would sit around with my guitar and my bass and just play to the radio songs. I would listen to the radio until a song came on I liked, then I'd hit record on the tape, record the tape, rewind the tape, and play it over and over and over as I learned the song because I couldn't afford music books and I didn't have the access to the internet or anything. So we just had to record a song and play along to it until we learned. Honestly, still think it's the best way, but at least to learn when you're young. But that was just my experience. But learning to play guitar is different than being motivated to play guitar. I know how to play, and I have a hard time playing. I have a whole studio, dude. I many of you know I started building guitars about a year ago, and I have two finished bass guitars and one finished electric guitar, and then several that are in the process. Some of them have resin and circuit. I'm gonna get the circuit board guitar to show you guys for anybody who hasn't seen it, so I can prove it. I'm not lying. So this is the one I've been posting. I posted it on Instagram. It's called my Universal Circuit Guitar. And this is made out of an old pine table that was actually my wife's parents'. And so I cut out a section of that table. And then this is a thin section of it maybe I used maple on this one. But anyway, as you can see, half of the guitar is nothing but circuit boards and glow-in-the-dark resin. And these are all pieces of tape to protect it because it's not finished yet. But this is a one-piece guitar. So in other words, the whole body and the neck and the head are all one piece. And then at the head, it's got my little embedded Carpo signature, which I'm going to fill with resin. And then up here, it's got a 512 megabyte RAM card and several little fuses, and all these are inset within this, it's kind of hard to see. But anyway, then it's got a maple fretboard with, I haven't filled the holes with resin yet, or the back, but it's just one of the guitars. I learned how to put my own frets on, how to do all that shit, and the point here is I trained myself. I knew nothing about building guitars. I just researched the shit out of it, and I said, as a carpenter, that's what I want to learn how to do right now, and I got really into it, and now they just sit here hoping I can sell them eventually one day. I have to finish them completely to sell them. I have a couple that are finished, but I'm going to go put this one back real quick, and I'll get you the one that's finished so you can see it. This is the only electric guitar that I have completely finished, and it's this is my friend and I went down to the wood store and bought this stuff. It's maple and walnut, and you can see it's a through neck guitar. So walnut on the edges, maple in the center. That's actually all one piece to the neck. Very simple head on it. No designs or anything. It has a purple heart fretboard and your standard tuners and a double pickup. So it works. If you can build a guitar that works, you're doing okay. And that's about all I've got for today. I showed off all my stuff, and KC says weed gives me anxiety. That happens sometimes. That happens. I'm getting spongled by this conversation. Which Eric Jet says I'm picking up a new set of drums in February. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I haven't played drums in years, but we used to have a nice fucking set of DW drums here, and I played the shit out of them while they were here. I gave them away in the end, but, you know. Daniel, how does one bang a fuckload of sluts? Well, there's a secret to that. I'm not going to tell you. Let's see. I have Asperger's. You know, whenever I hear the word Asperger's, all I can think of is South Park. When Cartman had Asperger's. Yeah, it was funny. But anyway, I gotta go. My wife's making me actually a burger right now. And I wanted to say I love you all and I appreciate you all coming. And you guys are awesome. Thank you so much to all of you for listening and for having contributions. We'll do this again very soon. And, yeah. We'll do this again soon. Peace out. Much love to all of you. Be well. Give somebody a hug. Time to eat dinner.